Despite not knowing how I would execute it at the beginning of the design process, I did have a pretty clear vision for what I wanted in a combat system. I really hate needless clutter and complication in RPG battle systems, and I find myself most interested in games that present combat as a puzzle, rather than something you need to grind through. I also really like the challenge involved in figuring out the mystery of an opponent's attack patterns without knowing exactly what's going to happen next. And as a player, I like having a set of tools and options when I go into an encounter, but I don't like having so many choices that they become overwhelming to manage. I'm a huge fan of Pokemon, but having 6 party members was absolutely not in scope for this design. So the mood board for the battle system for this game was Paper Mario 64, Earthbound, and Undertale. The Mother series, that's Mother, Earthbound, and Mother 3, have this really interesting approach to combat. The enemy attacks are narrated with this really silly and mysterious flavor text, and it's often left intentionally unclear whether your opponent's actions are actually related to an attack, or whether it's just narration about what's happening. I think this ends up being really effective for the design because it leads to greater immersion. Those narrations are just taken as a part of a little scene that's unfolding as the battle goes on, rather than just purely trying to present mechanical information. And as a player, you get this really distinct feeling about being in an actual scenario while you're also solving the mystery of what's going to happen next. It's the qualitative narration stuff and the mechanical battle stuff that exist in harmony, and that layer of mystery around the whole thing help, I think, join those two pieces together. Combat is also pretty asymmetrical in Earthbound and Mother games. You tend to have a lot more attacks at your disposal than your opponent does. Unlike Pokemon, where the behavior of your opponent is meant to closely mimic the imagined behavior of an opposing player in that scenario, many traditional RPGs like Earthbound have the opponents behaving in unpredictable and somewhat mysterious ways, but there are enough patterns and cues and clues in the narration that you can sort of solve the encounter without grinding to a higher level being the only solution. This is where I brought in some influence from Paper Mario as well. The first 2 Paper Mario games are very tightly controlled in the amount of experience that's awarded for enemy encounters, which will naturally tend to limit the amount of grinding that you're going to do, and leading you toward puzzling through enemy encounters rather than just over-leveling yourself enough to flatten your opponents. I personally think this leads to more interesting and compelling gameplay, but it's a balancing act because you want to allow your players to experience a sense of growth and to have enough options at their disposal to solve enemy encounters in their own way. There shouldn't be just one solution.